By now you're probably familiar with Oliver Anthony, the hit songwriter of the song Richmond North of Richmond. That song has taken the charts and the nation by storm for obvious reasons. He has this haunting, really good voice. And more importantly, the words of the song ring deeply, deeply true. Now, I especially appreciate him, as you may, because the fame hasn't seemed to have gone to his head yet, because whenever he has the opportunity to, he very humbly reads scripture and gives credit to God for saving his life from depression and from drug addiction. So needless to say, his fame actually seems somewhat rightfully deserved here. And I find myself saying more and more these days, I don't like country music, but I really do like this song. I said this with Jason Aldean, and I'm saying it here with this one, because there is something just very powerful about this song that Oliver Anthony sang and gave to the world. But the reason I want to highlight him here in this segment, Bible Study with Democrats, is because there's a strategy that has allowed Christianity to weaken so much under our watch, that has allowed the left to kind of come in and make bold assertions, like you can have drag queen story hour at your church, and that you can have, glitter masses, and that the LGBTQ religion situates just perfectly fine within the context of biblical Christianity. It's an insane idea, and one has to ask, where do these people get the boldness to even believe that this kind of nonsense can sit within the context of Christianity? And that's why I wanted to highlight Oliver Anthony here, because I believe that his story is a little bit of an illustration, if you will, for how the Democrats that have totally tried to butcher Christianity in this generation, how they are allowed to exist. Because very often, Christians have not been really great at addressing these issues in the past. Either we've been too iron-fisted and not really logical in being iron-fisted, or we've just not fought that battle whatsoever. And so I want to try to show you this via an illustration of Oliver Anthony, who just recently was on Joe Rogan and then also recently came out and made some personal comments. And I think this will start to make a little bit more sense. But first, let's go to the good. Let's go to Oliver Anthony talking about God on the biggest podcast platform in the world. Check it out.
It's like, and I'll be very brief with this, I promise, but like one thing, ironically, it's Proverbs 4:20, which I thought you would like. So if there's anything better.
Perfect. But, read it. Preach.
My son, pay attention to what I say. Turn your ear to my words. Do not let them out of your sight. Keep them within your heart. For they are life to those who find them and health to one's whole body. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Keep your mouth free from perversity. Keep corrupt talk far from your lips. Let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you. Give careful thought to the paths for your feet, and be steadfast in all your ways. Do not turn to the right or the left. Keep your foot from evil. But
that's pretty profound.
But the whole book of Proverbs is like that. Like, it's not preachy. It's not what you think. Like, it's good guidance. It's like good guidance that you would want a father to give to his son.
Now, I love to hear this. And in fact, it's really interesting to see Hulk Hogan one week talk about Jesus and how Jesus has saved his life on the Joe Rogan Experience, and then for Oliver Anthony the following week to do the exact same thing. And to see Rogan kind of be more open-minded to Christianity is also interesting. I won't say he's on a spiritual journey yet of any great merit, and I won't say, oh, I can't wait for Joe Rogan to get saved, because man, just imagine if that guy got saved. That we've made those arguments far too often, the kind of like celebrity argument that, oh, he'd be great for the kingdom of God. And it's like, no man, Jesus is great, and whenever we realize who he is, that's what the world desperately needs. And I think this next clip will kind of illustrate that even more, because whenever Christians jump on the celebrity bandwagon, it usually backfires in their face. And I'm thinking Kanye in particular, because he was hot for a minute when he came out with his brand new album that he was trying to push in Christian circles, but it didn't take long for that crazy train to absolutely derail. And while of much different proportion, I think in this next clip you'll hopefully see why we need to be not so quick to jump on the celebrity bandwagon as it pertains to Christianity and universal truth that the world needs now more than ever. Because here's Anthony kind of taking an odd stance after singing such a powerful song like Richmond North of Richmond. Check it out.
If there is anything for me to address at all with you, it's that You know, it's the one thing that has bothered me is seeing people wrap politics up into this. I'm disappointed to see, like, it's aggravating seeing people on conservative news try to identify with me like I'm one of them. It's aggravating seeing certain musicians and politicians act like we're buddies and act like we're fighting the same struggle here, like that we're trying to present the same message. You know, I've had a lot of people reach out to me, and I've tried to be polite to everybody, and I've talked to hundreds of people the last 2 weeks. But it seems like certain people want to just ride the attention of this song to maybe make them their own selves relevant, and that's aggravating as hell. The other thing that I find aggravating is, well, you know, like, it was funny seeing my song in the, it was funny seeing it at the presidential debate. Because it's like, I wrote that song about those people, you know? So for them to have to sit there and listen to that, that cracks me up. Like, that song has nothing to do with Joe Biden, you know? It's a lot bigger than Joe Biden. That song's written about the people on that stage.
So there we go. I mean, that's absolutely rich. This song was written for the people on the stage at the Republican debate, but it was not written for Joe Biden. I absolutely think you have that backwards. And listen, I'm willing to admit, maybe it's both of them. It's for the people on that GOP stage, and it's for the Joe Bidens of the world. But trust me, that song and the lyrics of that song are definitely for Joe Biden and all of his friends, because they are the reason that entitlement programs like welfare, which is mentioned in the song, are so out of control. I also think it's kind of interesting, too, that Oliver Anthony obviously gave permission for this song to be played at the Republican debates that night. So for him to distance himself like this seems, just suffice to say, a little bit honest. So I just want to start from the very beginning to just say, yes, your song is political. It is, Oliver Anthony. You were talking about political things in the song, and it is political. And of course, it matters how we define what it means to be political, but the reason he is trying to distance himself ultimately from this song and its political overtones, if not undertones, is because he seems to be trying to create mass appeal. He doesn't want anybody on the left not to like his song, and he certainly wants to make people on the right continue to like his song. He's making that mistake that so many have made of trying to situate himself in the middle so that he can grab both audiences and try to gather them around the song, because he doesn't want it to be divisive. Well, I just have to tell you, it's not going to work. You'll figure out real quick, if you alienate the conservative, the people who are supporting you right now, you'll figure out real quick where your fame and your status goes. Not to mention, you'll figure out real quick what happens if you try to befriend people on the left. You are not loved by those people. There's two big, fat, golden cows on the left. And that is the body positivity movement, which you made fun of in your song, and entitlement programs. So please, trust me. You are not finding friends on the left with your song. And you are taking a political stance because you're squarely speaking about things that resonate with conservatives. So your song is a conservative song. And it says what conservatives have been saying for years. There's nothing new in that song. These are all things that conservatives have been saying. But even if his song wasn't political, it should be. The center, which Oliver Anthony has come out and said he's kind of a political centrist. The center is a proxy almost always for cowardice and laziness. And here's what I mean by that. The center, especially for Christians, have been a position of cowardice in this way, that Christian pastors for far too long have tried to sit in the middle because they want to try to be sufficiently welcoming and pleasing to the people who are dead set against Christianity and, for all intents and purposes, hate everything that Christians stand for. And so they think that the way to reach those people is to try to stand somewhere in the middle. But of course, we know from Mr. Miyagi what happens if you kind of karate maybe. So it's a position of cowardice because you don't want to take a position because you're afraid of the repercussions, the social repercussions of really standing up for the issues that matter most. And it's laziness in that you can only really be a centrist on major issues if you just haven't taken the time to really think through these things. Because when you do, you oddly find yourself being pushed to one side or another, especially if you're a Christian. There really is no middle ground when it comes to the gender mutilation of children. You can't be a centrist there and be a Christian. So if you think you can, it's either because you're just being cowardly or because you haven't taken the effort and the time that it takes and the kind of mental maturity that you need to kind of think through these issues in a deep, deep way. So in other words, the center is no place, especially for a Christian, or at least just a thinking man. And this is why I wanted to bring this up. Because for the longest time, Christians have been using this kind of strategy. We'll talk about Jesus and we'll share the Bible and try to make sure that when we do so, we share passages that won't offend the sensibilities of modern man. And when it comes to divisive issues, we back down. Now, I'm grateful for Oliver Anthony. I'm grateful for his song. I'm grateful when he goes on Joe Rogan and he shares some of the things that he shared there and his testimony, because that's powerful. But it's also not enough. We need Christian men and women to stand up in the public square for the kind of political issues that really matter when it comes to issues of like gay marriage, when it comes to issues of abortion, when it comes to issues of transgenderism. But by and large, many Christians have not stood up for those things. And as a result of it, the left has slowly but surely encroached in on the church and taken that captive, just like they have the media, because common sense won't rule the day when the postmodern neo-Marxist left is slowly but surely taking territory because we won't defend it. And when we don't defend that kind of territory, we're sending a loud and clear message to the secularist out there. First and foremost, we're saying Christ really doesn't have anything important to say. If we're not really willing to stand up on issues and really stand up on issues that may even potentially be divisive, the issues that matter most, what we're saying is Jesus really doesn't have important things to say. When we stand behind, I'm not political, I just preach the gospel, you better be careful when you say that, because you might really just be saying, ultimately, I'm trying to avoid prickly conversations. And then in doing that, you're communicating that Jesus doesn't really have anything important to say on these subjects, and it couldn't be further from the truth. Let's just start with gay marriage. As Jesus says, what God has put together, marriage between a man and a woman, let no man put asunder. Or how about that little pesky verse about if you mess with children, it'd be better if you tied a millstone around your neck and threw yourself into the sea. Jesus has things to say about the treatment of children, in the LGBTQ community. Drag Queen Story Hour and gender mutilating care. But he also has things to say about abortion and all of these other issues. He has important things to say about it, but we're communicating subtly to the world that Jesus really doesn't care about those things. He has nothing important to say to us on these really important issues. And so don't be surprised when people want to tune the words of Christ out, because we've told them essentially that there's nothing interesting there for them to see. But most importantly, or maybe not most importantly, but also importantly, we've also communicated a subtle message about Christianity. So the first one, we've communicated a message about Christ, but we've also communicated a message about Christianity, is that even if Jesus did have important things to say, it's not that important to us. That Christians lack the kind of courage, the moral virtue, to actually stand up for what they believe in. And so a generation of people who crave authenticity and say, oh, we love authenticity. We want to hear how weak you are and how you're just like everybody else, but we're not willing to be authentic when it comes to the true authentic beliefs of the church. So even if Jesus did have important things to say, ultimately when Christians don't stand up for those things, we're saying it's not that important and it really doesn't matter to your life. But this is why we shouldn't jump on the Christian celebrity bandwagon too quickly, and why we need to value truth above everything else. The ability of most new converts to express depth is almost always lacking, and Oliver Anthony is a brand new baby Christian. Celebrate him and his success, but know his discipleship is necessary before we really care too much about what he has to say. For my part, I'm not talking about credentialism, but before I ventured into this podcast of my own, I spent 20 years traveling around the world speaking. I earned, wasn't given to me, a graduate degree. Not that I care about any of that, and you shouldn't either. I'm just merely saying this. A man with a guitar has earned the right to sing and play music, not to elaborate on the wisdom of the ages. All of this is not a knock on Anthony. Speak on, preach on, and inspire others. This is a knock on us. The reason we jump at the chance to celebrate a celebrity is because we love the flashy and often miss the valuable. Hollywood has caused us to value talent and disregard character. If this isn't so, why did we vote for Joe Biden? The man's been lying his whole life. I'll tell you why. Biden was promised to be a saving grace from Donald Trump. We thought a corrupt, lifelong politician who has lied about his college, lied about his past, lied about his son, lied about basically everything, and yes, I'm sorry to admit, even lied about corn pop, would somehow help our country simply because we are in love with feelings over truth. Now, there are those in the church who would say our society has become success obsessed, that we need to slow it down. We need to be okay with failure and be okay with our inadequacies in order to live a more stress-free and joyful life. Really? Is the bigger problem in our society that we're so dedicated to excellence, or that we celebrate mediocrity? We celebrate musicians who accomplish the great feat of being morbidly obese. We celebrate men for being Women of the Year and young men for smashing women's swimming records. Oh yeah, and we celebrate women's soccer. I mean, men's soccer isn't even a real sport. All that to say this about Anthony's success. I'm grateful for it. But before we think that he has too much legitimacy in the words that he has to declare to us, we should be careful to realize that our society may not truly be obsessed with success, an American Idol kind of success, but we're actually kind of obsessed with mediocrity. Could that be because we as a society have lost our telos as a culture? What Aristotle considered the ultimate truth or the ultimate standard, the ultimate end of life, the thing we should aim at. As secularism has seeped into mainstream culture, along with it has also been an arbitrary standard of what is good and what is bad, what is right and wrong. Now we find our subjectivists in the world claiming that my truth and your truth are equally valid, even if they wildly contradict each other. The truth is that Anthony's song has a telos that rings true. That's why people are responding to it. We feel it in our bones, we know it deep down in our soul, that the way things are not as they should be. But we must respond to that with a desperate search for what can provide the right answers. If we respond with foot tapping and reciting platitudes, we'll perpetuate the problems of society. In order to truly alleviate these problems and to be honest about truth, we must diligently search for it and go far beyond the superficial and even into things that divide us from time to time. Since when did we get the impression that the truth wouldn't come at a price? After all, that guy Jesus wasn't crucified because he was so god-awfully loving and just so sweet. He was crucified because he stood for the truth, and we must do so even if it means that we find ourselves at ends with society. Because ultimately, when that society reaps the repercussions of its actions, it will turn full circle around and realize that we had something to offer, even if they didn't recognize it at the time. But will we be standing in the place of truth, even if it came at a cost, when the world needs us the most? By the way, that same man that was crucified, he is the ultimate telos, his word and his person. And without him, we'll keep celebrating the very things that spell our demise. But if we cling to him, we might find something much better. All right, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and go with God.
So you just got done watching a small excerpt of a much larger episode. You can find the link to that full episode down below in the description of this video. So you definitely want to check that out, because if you like that clip, you'll like the much larger episode. And while you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and click that little bell to be notified when great new episodes of Indie Thinker come your way. Thanks for watching.